The NBA regular season is in the books, which means it is time for the playoffs, which means it is also time to fill out my 2023 NBA playoff bracket. But before I get to that, I want to go over my predictions for the play-in tournament that tips off tomorrow night. Now, tomorrow night is the 7 and 8 matchups. First one, the Hawks and the Heat. And I'm going to go with the Heat to win that matchup. And in the Western Conference, the 7, the 8, the Timberwolves and the Lakers. Now, Rudy Gobert has been suspended by the Timberwolves for his actions in the regular season finale on Sunday by just absolutely going into a rampage towards Kyle Anderson. And it got really heated, really physical. And I think Rudy Gobert being absent in this game, I do think it is going to haunt the Timberwolves in this matchup, especially going up against an experienced team like the Lakers, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think the Lakers move on and they become the 7th seed in the Western Conference. And then we got the 9 and the 10s on Wednesday night, the Bulls and the Raptors. Now, the Raptors, they're dealing with some injuries right now, which is why I'm going to go with the Bulls to win this matchup. Both teams have really surprised me this season, but I've been a little bit more impressed with the Bulls, which is why I'm going to pick the Bulls in this matchup. Then we got the Thunder and the Pelicans. And this Thunder team has also surprised me. This Thunder team, to me, I felt like they were about a year or two away from being in a position like this, but it's a young team that flew under the radar. I'm going with the Thunder to pull off this upset against the Pelicans, ending the Pelican season. So then, I believe it's Friday night. We have the games for the final spots in the playoffs. The Bulls and Hawks for the 8th seed in the East. And I am going to go with the Hawks, although I do think this game is going to go either way. I think that both these teams, I think they stack up to each other pretty well. But I think the Hawks, I think they win a pretty close game against the Bulls. Then the Thunder and the Timberwolves for the 8th seed in the West. And I am going with the Thunder to pull off the upset. I think the Thunder, they play their way in. They win the 2 games they need to advance to the playoffs. And this Thunder team kind of reminds me of the Timberwolves team from last year, a team that I wouldn't suspect to make the playoffs, but they win their way in by winning in the play-in tournament. And the Thunder, they're a young team with a lot of future stars in this league, rising stars, led by Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey. So I think the Thunder, 8th seed in the West. So now that my play-in tournament predictions are out of the way, let's get into the NBA playoff bracket. Now I'm starting off in the Eastern Conference here. I'm actually going to go left to right. So I'm going to go the first 2 games in the Eastern Conference, then I'm going to move over to the West. That way I'm just not scrolling down the entire time. So Bucks and the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, which the play-in predictions I gave you a moment ago, I have it being the Hawks. So Bucks and Hawks. And the Hawks, I feel like, have been a pretty disappointing team this season. I think they failed to reach a lot of expectations. They fired Nate McMillan mid-season. They brought in Quinn Snyder. But I think the Bucks, I think they should have no problems with the Hawks. I think the Hawks maybe win 1 game, but I think that's it. I'll be surprised if the Hawks win 2 games in this series. Cavaliers and Knicks. Now, I think this series is going to go all 7 games. But I think in game 7, I think the Knicks move on to the second round. And they eliminate the Cavaliers. On to the Western Conference. The Nuggets versus the 8th seed in the West, which I have it being the Thunder. So Nuggets versus the Thunder. I think the Thunder, I think they could win 1 game in the series, but I just think the Nuggets, I think they shouldn't have any problems here with Oklahoma City. Although if this becomes the Lakers, I do think the Lakers will probably give the Nuggets fits, but I think the Nuggets, they advance either way. I think Nuggets, I'll go Nuggets in 5. Suns and Clippers. Paul George is progressing in his rehabilitation from injury, but the Suns, they went all in for Kevin Durant at the trade deadline. And now that he's inserted into the lineup, the Suns are starting to click. And that's just a recipe for success in the postseason. So I'm going to go with the Suns. I actually think the Suns, I think they could potentially sweep the Clippers, but I think the Clippers, they get 1, maybe 2 games. So I'm going to go Suns 5 or 6, but I'd lean towards 6. 76ers and the Nets. What a season it has been for the Nets. It started off with high expectations, where you have a big 3. You have Kyrie Irving, you've got Kevin Durant, you got Ben Simmons just waiting in the wings. But disaster strikes. Kyrie Irving wants out, Kevin Durant wants out, and Ben Simmons is being sidelined for the remainder of the season. I think 76ers win this series easily. Joel Embiid is the favorite to win league MVP. And James Harden is going to absolutely have his way in this series, I believe. I don't think Philadelphia has any problem here with the Nets. I'll be shocked if the Nets win more than 1 game. So 76ers clean sweep or in 5. Celtics versus the winner of the Heat and Hawks, which I have it being the Heat. So Celtics versus the Heat. Now, last year we saw these two in the Eastern Conference Final, and the Celtics won in 7 games. But I think this time around, I think the Celtics, I think they win it in 6 games. It could be 5, but I do think the Heat, I think they're going to really be a tough out. Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, a tough out. So I think the Heat at least force it to game 6. Kings and Warriors. Now, the Kings, they flew completely under the radar this entire season to finish 3rd in the Western Conference. And they broke their playoff drought. And their prize for that is to play the defending NBA champions. Now, I have been seeing a lot of talk about this series, where the Kings, they could pull off the win in this series overall. They can pull off the upset. Now, despite the Warriors being the 6th seed, they're pretty heavy favorites, in my opinion, to win this series. And honestly, they should be. So this technically isn't an upset, but I'm going with the Warriors to win this series. I'm going to say 6 games. I just think the lack of experience for the Kings in the playoffs is going to really be exposed here. And once you get into postseason play, things that matter the most are getting hot at the right time and experience. And the Warriors, they definitely have the experience. And there's been talk about the Warriors not being able to win on the road all year long. They struggle on the road. They don't have the home court advantage, but they only have to win 1 out of 4 home games, assuming they can defend their turf. So I think Warriors in 6. I do think they steal one of the first 2 games in this series from the Kings, and then the series goes right back in the Warriors' favor. And final matchup of the first round, the Grizzlies and the 7th seed in the Western Conference, between the winner of the Lakers and the Timberwolves, which I have been the Lakers. So Grizzlies versus Lakers. Now this could be a very exciting matchup as well. I think that this series is going to go to 7 games. But I do think with the Grizzlies missing Steven Adams, I think that could haunt them at some point in the playoffs. But I honestly don't think it's going to be in the first round, although knowing the NBA and all they care about is ratings, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they did or didn't rig this for the Lakers. You know what? I'll go with the Grizzlies because I do feel like that the Grizzlies, I think Grizzlies in 6. But I do think if the Lakers, if they can stay healthy this entire series, then I think they have a strong chance of pulling out this upset. I'm going to say Grizzlies 6 or 7. I'd lean it towards 6, but you never know what the NBA has up their sleeve. Although it could be the Lakers, but mm. I'll say this. If it's the Lakers, I think the Lakers, they have a chance to pull off this upset in the series. But if it's the Timberwolves, I'm going to go Grizzlies in 6 without a doubt. So, I'll check back in the comment section after the play-in game between the Lakers and Timberwolves. But I will say, though, I'll start off with Warriors and Grizzlies for round 2 here. Ja Morant, he really held his own in the second round series last year until he got injured. I think it's not going to matter here. I think the Warriors, they move on. And they move on to the conference final. 76ers and Celtics. Well, we know the story about the 76ers. It's always the talk of this could be the year. This could be the year that they win it all. It could be the year they make the NBA finals, year they make the conference finals, and then they lose in the second round. Or sometimes the first. And I think it's no exception here. I have the Celtics moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Next up, we got the Bucks and the Knicks. I am going to go with the Bucks in 5 games. Then we got the Nuggets and the Suns. I am going to go with the Suns to advance the Western Conference Finals. So now we are at the conference finals here. For the Eastern Conference, the Bucks and Celtics, and for the Western Conference, the Suns and Warriors. I'm going to start off with the Eastern Conference final. Now, last year we saw the Bucks and Celtics go to 7 games. This time around, I think the Bucks, I think they win it in 7 games. I think it goes down to the wire, but the Bucks move on to the NBA Finals. And in the Western Conference, the Suns and the Warriors. The Warriors, they were my preseason pick to win the NBA Finals. I'm repeating. I said that there was no reason to not think the Warriors wouldn't repeat. But what I didn't account for was the Suns trading for Kevin Durant. And with that, I think the Suns, they win in 7 games. So I think both conference finals go to 7 games. And finally, the NBA Finals, the Bucks and the Suns. And winning the NBA Finals in 6 games, I think, is going to be the Bucks. So the tiebreaker question here for this bracket: how many points will the Finals MVP score in the entire 2023 playoffs? Well, I will say this: I do think if the Bucks win the NBA Finals, I think it's going to be Giannis that wins Finals MVP. So I would assume he's going to have at least, maybe 30 most games. Could have maybe a 40 here and there. It's maybe 300 something. And I'm going to go with because someone like Giannis, he's expected to score maybe at least 25 to 30 a night. I do think the Bucks will go through at least 18 games in the postseason. 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 Probably going to look like a ridiculous number here, but I'm going to go with 464 points for Giannis in the entire playoffs, which if the Bucks play about 18 to 20 games in the postseason, which I think they would, it's pretty much an average of about 25 a game. So that will do it. Comment your predictions down below, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, have a wonderful day.